Hey man, have you seen the latest Fateless video? No. What's it about? Oh dude, it's pretty sick. Simon just did a huge info dump on the latest gear system for Godforge. Are you okay? Hey, what are you doing, man? Oh, sorry. No, you can't sing that song. It's copyrighted. You're gonna get the video demonetized. I won't do it again. It's cool. Don't do it again, right? Amateur. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Adventures of Adam. I'm Adam. Let's adventure. Today we're going to be taking a look at the latest Godforge video where they break down the gear system as well as talk about some UI stuff. So let's just jump straight in.
See our enemy heroes and our hero in action. We've got on the left-hand side a kind of like scrollable who's due next for a turn. And if there's like a little red hint at the moment, that is an enemy. If it's,
I think that's good. It's pretty obvious. I like these. I think these little tabs on the side are probably enough information to glean whether the character that we see on the side is an enemy versus an ally. If you wanted to make these tabs a little bit more obvious rather than like a round little half circle, maybe make them a sharp triangle instead, like these, maybe. But yeah, overall, I think it looks fine.
it's your team. We might change this kind of redness, but would love to.
And then rather than just like a beige half circle, perhaps put in like one of these green triangles. So I don't know, just a thought. There's nothing wrong with the way it looks currently. These are just thoughts that I have.
To know your thoughts on it, but certainly the kind of like feel of team order or turn order, sorry, on the left is one that we like. We have got arrows depicting your affinity matchup. So
looks good.
Double green means you're going to hit them hard. Yellow means it's going to be a normal hit, and red means it could be a weak hit. But again, there's kind of like some logic around what that means. It's not the same as what you might see in other games, but I'll go into that in a separate video.
So apparently there are affinity systems. They are similar to what we know, but not exactly the same. That's kind of interesting. I'll be interested to see how affinity comes into play in Godforge.
But ultimately, there'll be chances to land stuff based on these. Obviously, buffs and debuffs, red being a debuff, blue being a buff. You see your team on your portraits down the bottom left, and the enemies have theirs over their heads. The yellow bar is a turn meter bar. The red bar for the enemy is your health, and for the green bar is your health for your team.
That's all perfect. That all makes tons of sense, and it's very familiar to what we've seen in other games, so I like that.
And then if there's a shield,
no need to reinvent the wheel.
This is kind of like gray color. And then we've got affinity meter building up. I'd like to know your feedback on this, actually.
I was actually thinking about this all week. Instead of a bar that fills up on a square to the left, what I was envisioning was the entire health and turn meter bar start to see like the similar effect to what we see with Aphrodite here, where it's like surrounding her portrait. So as the ultimate gets closer and closer to finishing, that blue glow works its way up around the border of the health and turn meter bar. And then it glows brighter and brighter the closer it gets to the finish. And then once it hits, the whole health bar and turn meter bar, that whole thing is just like glowing with this like fiery effect. I think that would look sick.
In this kind of like box, we're trying to show a lot of things on the UI without making it too complex for a brain, right? So we're trying to try and keep it as clean as possible. But this is basically...
So with the suggestion that I had, it wouldn't add an extra bar. It would just have like a glow around the two bars we already have. So it's something that you could just take a quick glance at and immediately understand the status of the fight. Makes sense to me, but we'll see. We'll see what they do.
An divinity meter that's growing, and that will be how you unleash an ultimate ability. So for your heroes down the bottom left here, you can see divinity going up. When your ultimate is ready, we got this flame effect. Aphrodite is ready. She's ready to...
So like, let's say hypothetically, this Musashi here, it looks like his ultimate is completely full. So what I'm saying is his entire health and turn meter bar would have this sort of fiery glowing effect coming off of it. I think that would be sick.
Unleash an ult. And on your turn, you would be able to click Aphrodite on any of your heroes and unleash her ult.
So what he's saying there is regardless of whose turn it is, as long as it's someone's turn on your team, let's say it's your Musashi's turn, you can still activate Aphrodite's ult while it's not even her turn. So if it's Zeus, Anubis, whoever, as long as it's your turn, you could activate Aphrodite's ult. I think that's sick, and I think it's going to add a ton of strategic complexity to the game, and I'm really looking forward to it.
So that's one of our kind of like key strategic things is using ultimates when you think it's going to benefit your team as a whole. So you can unlock some really cool combos of ults going off. So yeah, divinity meters here. So top right, we've got speed of play. We've got auto gameplay on.
There's a ×3 up there, in case you missed it. That's exciting.
We've got auto game.
Now, that's obviously subject to change. They may not release the game with the ×3, but the fact that they have it in the UI currently is a good sign.
Play on. We've got a pause, but also kind of way to cascade down the other options. So an info button, which will tell you about your team and the debuffs you've got on that.
One of the things that's severely lacking in Raid Shadow Legends in info screen is the lack of info. I think it should tell you the champion's name. So like if like especially for new players, like if you just get wrecked by an enemy and you're like, who the hell was that? Knowing what their name is, knowing what faction they're in, you can go to your index after the battle and look them up and read their kit and kind of learn what they do so you can try to counter them your first time pushing through the game. I think that's really important. That's something that's always been missing from Raid's info screen or lack of info screen.
Type of stuff. We've got a damage.
I love this. It's like the recount add-on for World of Warcraft.
Kind of like meter, or it would also have healing and shielding. If you guys want to have that up, it can be up the whole time, but you can just toggle it on or off. There's also a way to just watch the gameplay cinematic style.
Beautiful.
We've gone for this kind of like cinematic cool view, so you can literally turn off the whole UI and just have it running on auto, which is quite cool. We've got down at the bottom left your basic ability, your core ability, any passive skills, and then your hero will have their ultimates.
So we've only seen about like somewhere between 5 and 10 champions and their kits, but so far from what we have seen, every champion has had a basic ability, which is just the skill they use when they don't have anything else available, and then a core ability, which is an ability with a cooldown, then their ultimate, and then some passives. So it's really simple in that most heroes will only have 2 abilities that they kind of use back and forth. But the fact that the ultimates can be used at any time, basically, if they're ready, it's just, there's going to be some insane combos to come because of the way they've got this ultimate system structured.
So that's pretty much the bones of the UI. We are looking to do an ability where if you've got auto running, you can turn off a skill that has a cooldown. So it's not going to eat away like your core ability.
So what I imagine in my head is you press and hold with your thumb, and then maybe a menu pops up to give you a description of the skill, and then maybe there's a second button that allows you to toggle the ability on or off. That's kind of what I picture when he's describing this. I don't know what they had planned, but I'm thinking something like that.
Ability, if you're trying to save those for, like the next wave of enemies or something like that. So we've got some interesting stuff going on with the battle UI, but let me know what you think down below. Let's go into gearing. So gearing is going to feel...
I've been waiting for this moment all my life. Oh, Lord. Okay, but seriously, though, this is like the one thing that I've been waiting for since they announced the project. Customization, characters, combat. Those are the 3 things that they have to nail in order to be successful, in my opinion. So characters look great. Obviously, they look like characters people want to collect. The combat looks cool and fun, and I'm really looking forward to the strategic depth that the Ultimate system has to offer. And then customization. How can you customize your characters, i.e., the gear system? So let's look at with it. Actually, while we have it paused, let's look at the stats. There's HP, which obviously that's like your health points or health pool. That affects how much damage you could take before you die. You have attack, which depending on the hero could affect your damage output. Defense is usually, I'm assuming this is going to be some sort of damage mitigation metric. And how this works exactly, we don't know yet. It could be that there's a sort of diminishing returns style system like what we see in Raid Shadow Legends. There could just be a hard cap where once you get to a certain level of defense, you can no longer gain defense mitigation. So it could just be linear and then hard capped. Or maybe there is no cap or diminishing returns and you can just stack 13 million defense and just be indestructible. Who knows? I'm really looking forward to see how they do this in Godforge. And then speed, this is the metric that affects the rate at which your turn meter fills. Initiative, it is unconfirmed, but I have been long speculating that this is the metric that influences the rate at which you gain divinity to charge your ultimate. If it's not initiative, then I don't know what is, because crit rate, that makes sense. That's pretty straightforward. It increases, this metric determines the likelihood of landing a critical hit. Crit damage is your critical hit damage modifier. So 200% crit damage means you do 200% more damage on a critical hit. Resistance and accuracy, these are sort of, you need this much accuracy to overcome the opponent's resistance, and you need this much resistance to overcome the opponent's accuracy. So the only thing that I can see here that could potentially affect ultimate charge is this initiative. So that's pretty cool. Let's find out more about it. Notice that there is 5 substats on the gear, on this flawless piece of gear, rather than the 4, is what we're used to seeing in something like Raid Shadow Legends. And it absolutely makes sense because they're adding an additional stat that you can build into your champions, which is initiative. You don't have ultimate charge in Raid, so there's no, so this is like, you could, it seems, in theory, stack tons of gear with tons of initiative to get your champions to get their ultimate charge faster. If this is indeed the stat that affects that metric, which I'm assuming it is. I don't know what else it could be at this point, but it's cool that you can get this on your gear. I'm so excited to mess with this.
And you can kind of see it go over. There's an enhance ability. There's no cost to equip or unequip an item. There is a cost in game, obviously, to enhance. So you'll enhance, you'll get additional stats. The way we're actually running stat growth, again, I'd love your feedback on this, is you actually see all of your stats going up with each roll.
So if I'm to understand this correctly, please correct me if I'm wrong, if anyone from the Fateless team watches this. So you go from artifact level 0 to 1 or whatever. And when you do that, the way he's describing it makes it seem as though all of your substats increase by a varied amount. And then after they increase, you can get an idea for how the substat RNG is going to go as you level it up, which, if that's the case, that sounds huge. If you wanted to see if you're going to get a quad speed roll on a piece of gear in Raid, you would have to level it to level 16, which costs millions of silver. And then there's a chance that you get a triple roll and you're going for the quad and you spend that extra $1.5 million, 2 million silver, and then you don't get that final roll into the speed, which is what you needed it to do for the speed tune you're trying to build or whatever. This, you put 1 level into it and you could automatically see, okay, this one is going to be heavily weighted towards accuracy first, speed second, and then everything else is kind of tertiary. That is so cool if this works the way that he's just, if I'm interpreting this correctly. That's great. So if I wanted to build a champion with like hella initiative, maybe a champion's basic attack and core ability aren't very powerful, but they have an insane ult, I could potentially try to forego speed altogether, crank up their initiative, and just try to like machine gun their ult every time I get an opportunity. And with this system, I could, in theory, just see which pieces of gear are going to be heavily favored towards initiative before I invest all of my silver into it. That's sick.
So you basically start to get a feel for whether it's going in the direction you want very early on, okay? And is it rolling into stats that you like? But ultimately, you're gaining stats across the board with each roll, which I think
that sounds so awesome. I love that.
It's quite cool. There is an ability to attune your item. You can only attune an item if it is the set that makes sense to the type of hero that you've got. So let's say you've got a tank, and you would attune plate mail, for example, to a tank, and you would gain additional stats for doing that.
Okay, so this is also very similar to what we see in World of Warcraft. Every class has their armor proficiencies and the armor they can or cannot wear. I love that they're going to the strict. It's the same for like Dungeons and Dragons too. If you try to, it doesn't seem like they're going to penalize you for wearing things that your character is not proficient in, like you would get punished in D&D, but it seems like rather than being punished for not wearing the appropriate armor class, you can potentially get a bonus for wearing the intended armor class.
There will be a gold cost to do it. I'd say that's more of like an end game mechanic, because once you've attuned, that piece is going to lock to that hero. Okay, so unless you pay to
This is going to be a total noob trap, by the way. I could already see the Reddit posts of people saying, why can't I beat content? And you'll see them forcing Nightweave onto like their invokers and just completely ignoring the stats that are on the piece itself and just forcing their invoker into Nightweave and wondering why they can't beat content. Like, I'm doing it right. I'm putting Nightweave on my invoker, but they just keep dying. Like, it just, this is going to be a noob trap. So don't fall for it. Watch YouTube videos. My channel, I will be covering Godforge. I will teach you how to gear your champions. That'll probably be one of the first videos I make for my channel, because it's usually the most important type of video for these types of games. So be on the lookout.
Remove it. But it's kind of like cherry on top type of vibe for maxing out your build. That's the thinking here. So you'd only want to be going into attunement once you've got a piece that you think is going to be longer term for that hero. But as long as it's not attuned, totally free to move stuff around. Well, no, it's free to move stuff around anyway, but we're trying to just make sure there's like an end game mechanic which really like tips it into the top quality area. So that's the kind of basics around gear. There's going to be about 20 odd sets. I think it's a bit more than 22 sets, I think, on launch.
That's awesome.
So a set throughout campaign and then different sets in your dungeons.
It makes it sound like there is a campaign set that you will acquire while you're working your way through campaign. That's kind of interesting. I'm assuming it's going to be one that is good for new players, similar to how lifesteal is in Raid. It's like you kind of just need lifesteal just because it's hard to get a good healer. And if you don't have a good healer, it's hard to keep your starter champion alive to beat campaign. So I'm assuming it's going to be some sort of gear set that gives your champions an ability to stay alive.
Some really interesting different like passive abilities that you'll get from your sets. So we tried to make it really, really just as interesting and give you as much depth as possible while still being, you know, easy enough for a new player just to pick up.
That's great.
Will be like a auto equip type of feature which will equip gear that makes some sense for the hero that you're trying to build out.
I don't mind that. I probably won't use it.
Min-maxing it will need to come from your own knowledge and brain. Okay, I think I covered.
Just watch my guides. I'll teach you guys how to do it. Don't worry about it.
Covered everything on gear, or at least like the basics on gear. Let's go into weapons. We've got some interesting stuff going on with our weapon system. So again, I'm on a Figma thing here, so you can kind of I'll play through what's going on. The Forge of Wayland is where you'll be able to craft and empower and equip weapons.
I've been pretty critical on the art direction of some things in the game that we've seen so far. A lot of those things have been placeholder, to be fair, but I just want to state this is a good direction to go in for the game Godforge, especially for the Forge of Wayland. This aesthetically looks really cool, and I really like the direction. Even if this is just a placeholder image, like the aesthetic is what I'm talking about. This is great.
Weapons. So there are different rarities of weapons, legendary, epic, and rare. So I can go into my collection here.
So on the Discord, another fellow content creator for Godforge, Ragewood, commented that it would be cool if instead of being called the collection, it was called the Arsenal. And some members of the team, I think it was Saphira and Hell Hades, both thought that was cool. So we could see a change to this from collection to Arsenal in the future. We'll just have to keep an eye out for that.
And see the different weapons I've got. So this is Excalibur, for example, and we can do different things. So I could kind of look through my collection. I can't do it in this little tutorial thing, but to look through my collection here, I can refine my weapons, which is basically leveling them up. I can deconstruct.
Hold on a second. Okay, using ultimate ability has a 30% chance to refresh the cooldown of a core ability. That is really cool.
Construct my weapon. So,
but it looked like okay, so refining it to level it up increases the stats on it. I'm wondering if it has the ability to increase the chance of the proc. That would be really cool because it's in green, right? It looks like everything that increases turns green, so that's interesting. If that might just be a coincidence that it's also green, but If leveling it up increased the likelihood of this happening, that would be sick.
And deconstruct my weapon. So basically what this is going to do is if I've got weapons that I don't need, I'll get some ore back, which will help me with the refinement. And then I can also imprint onto my weapon. So what does this mean? This is one of our mechanics, which I'm pretty excited about, actually. I think it's one of the kind of like standout features, which is going to create amazing amounts of depth in the game, awesome builds, like really fun combos. So I'm really excited for this. So what's going on? So you'd be able to select your weapon. You'd then be able to choose an imprint of a hero and imprint that hero onto a weapon to give them a new passive ability. So I'm just going to take you through the kind of like style guide of how we got this going on here. So we have got attunement as well in weapons, but basically we have got a weapon which will have a passive ability on it, or an implicit, we're calling it here. And this is going to have some really cool effects as you're going through the game. You get some stats on weapons as well. You can then...
So, plus 5%. Plus 5% what? Plus 5% chance to proc per star? And it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 star. 6 divided by 5 is 30. Or that's not math. 6 times 5 is 30. So at 1 star it's 5%. At 6 star it's 30%. Maybe. And then what's the purple mean again? Imprint, attuned. Okay, so looks like you gain additional chances to proc, or increased chance to proc when you imprint or attune your weapons.
Have any kind of like bonus info and imprint info, which we'll go through in a second, and you can enhance them. So different.
So like this one gets these bonuses.
Rarities of weapons will have kind of like different levels of implicit abilities. Just go through an idea of how like a final weapon would look. So ultimately you would have your implicit and then your passive ability, which you would get from a hero. So in this example here, at the start of each round, the hero gains a shield for 2 turns.
What I really want to know is every single hero in the game going to have their own imprint ability, or is it going to be like the Kajiki faction rares have this ability, the Kajiki faction epics have this ability? Or could they break it down even further and be like, red affinity Kojiki faction rares do this, green affinity Kojiki faction rares do that? Or is each individual champion going to have, because this is going to get insane. And what I'd be interested to know is, I'm assuming that the rares offer a less powerful bonus than when you imprint like a duplicate legendary, for example. That would make a lot of sense.
Equal to 12% of this hero's max HP. That, as it stands right now, is Leonidas's imprint. Okay, so how can you get an imprint? It's either a dupe hero that you don't need, that you convert into an imprint, or you can actually just earn imprints through different events and sort of farming within the game. So it becomes...
So if it is indeed such that rare champion imprints are less powerful than legendary ones, I would like to hope that if there are legendary ones that are very desirable, those would be the ones that we could find through in-game events and stuff. Because if not, I think a lot of people are going to be upset if they need to get duplicate legendaries to imprint their weapons to get the most powerful effects. Because not everyone's going to be able to, even if you spend a ton of money, if the game launches with 50 legendaries, it's going to take a while to start getting dupes, even if you're a spender.
It's like a secondary cool feature, really, from our heroes, that, you know, you could have a Excalibur weapon on King Arthur, but with the imprint of a Zeus, for example. You know, ultimately endless like combos of cool stuff that you can do. I think what I'm looking forward to is when, you know, people are using their rare heroes that they don't need to actually play with in game, and actually using those as imprints on cool weapons, because the passive just really fits what you're trying to do with a build. You can also attune weapons as well. So in a similar way to what I spoke about with gear, basically you get an attunement bonus, which will give you additional stats. Again, you would need to be able to attune to the right type of hero. So you'd have to be able to attune to someone within the right faction, and then you would get the right stats. So anyone could use Excalibur, for example, but you can only attune it.
So, okay, yeah.
Excalibur to someone in the Avalon faction.
So if you had Thor's hammer, for example, if that, Malnir or something like that, I forget exactly what it's called, that would likely only be able to be attuned to an Asgardian champion.
So to give you an idea, and yeah, I think that's kind of like the main breakdown. I'll just go through the armor elements as well. So we do have like a full, just additional breakdown here. Make sure I've covered everything off. Main stats, substats, bonus. Yeah, let's go through them here.
So this is rarities, but they all are called flawless. So I'm assuming this is just text placeholder text boxes, and they're just showcasing flawless is gold. It's the equivalent of legendary, and whatever this is purple, blue, etc.
So different rarities of armor.
And the substats in there are all the same too, so that's not changing. I think this is just to showcase the different colors, which I like the color scheme a lot.
The rarity is depicted by the name in our game, but you'll be able to see through colors which are easy recognizable alongside your heroes in terms of rarity as well. Just see if there's anything different here that you would need to know.
Oh, I see. Okay, so this one's level, I don't know what level it is, but you can see it goes from 14% to 17% to 27. Oh, it's right here. So 0, 4, 12, 16. So you can see it's leading in accuracy with like speed secondary, and then at 12 accuracy is still way ahead with speed still being the secondary, but it looks like initiative is caught up to it. And then at max it's still very heavy into speed with, or sorry, accuracy, with speed still being secondary and initiative just kind of overtaking it a little bit. It's kind of interesting. I like that you can see early on the direction it wants to go without having to fully invest in it to get an idea if you are going to get speed, or if you are going to get accuracy or initiative or whatever. Yeah, I think that's awesome.
As you level stuff up, you can see the rolls go right the way through your gear, and
when reaching the max level, the enhance button will change to attune. So it would appear as though you cannot attune a piece of gear until it's max level. That's interesting to know.
You kind of get a visual for how strong the piece is until you get to the final roll, and it's like, okay, where are my stats gone? And then, yeah, and you can attune it. So I think I've covered everything off. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. That is a whistle-stop tour of gearing, weapons, and our battle UI. I've been Simon from Fateless. I'll see you soon.
Anyway, that's going to do it for me, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully, I will see you all in another video soon. But until next time, everyone, take care.